It should be one for everybody to get.
The taxes on a new car today is what I paid for a new car in 1966. Yeah, the sales tax.
What's the date, the 9th? I guess I could look on the paper and see. Yes, sir.
I don't know, it's such a big deal. I don't think he won't do it because he ain't gonna make any commission.
It's legal to do what we're doing.
I know it. But he says this thing up here is great. I don't take this one. I don't take this one. I says, well, this is how I sold my last piece. I ain't taking this one.
Unless it's changed, or there's a little statute or something. I don't know about, could be, of course. So long, it's between the buyer and the seller. This may call for more coffee.
You ready, Don? Take a look at the minutes from the April 2nd meeting.
I knew where it was. I saw nothing wrong. I'd move to approve
What's that?
the minutes. Is that what you asked for? Move to approve the minutes, April 2nd.
Have a motion to approve the minutes of the April 2nd meeting. Do I have a second? I will second. Is there any further discussion?
Yes, I have several corrections.
Okay.
And they're more or less detail or grammatical, but I think it's inappropriate to leave that invitation that was presented to the board for the town hall meeting open to just saying it was one person, because that makes it sound like one person is inviting us. I would like to add, Sharon Doe presented correspondence signed by many citizens. I mean, we got 3 different letters.
I don't have a copy of any of them, so I have no idea what she gave you
1,
besides
2,
she
3.
gave
I'll just
you-
count them. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, 100, 101, 102, 103, 104, 105, 106, 107, 108, 109, 110, 111, 112, 113, 114, 115, 116, 117, 118, 119, 120, 121, 122, 123, 124, 125, 126, 127, 128, 129, 30, 31, 32, 33, over 50. I think it just sounds very targeted to leave one person's name on there. I would say Sharon Doe presented correspondence signed by over 50 citizens, which invited the board to attend a town hall meeting.
I don't believe that was made public at the meeting, so I don't think it could.
It is a public document. Once it has been presented to the commission as official correspondence, it's always a public document if it comes to the public meeting.
It is a public document and people can look at it, but at the same time, all she did was hand the letter to us, and I believe the secretary correctly
No, I
Said-
read the letter aloud in case you
said
don't
that it
remember.
was handled to us. So
I read the letter aloud, which makes it very, very public, and I did not read all, I can't even make out some of these signatures, but obviously they are signed, and it's by over 50 people. You guys continue to target people with using one person's name, saying that they come to a meeting, bringing up a point, and then you say that it's that singular person's idea or twisted, convoluted story, and that's not true. Over 50 people have signed this letter, and that is unfair to put that responsibility on one person.
Well, she was the one that brought it in and presented it to us.
And that's why I'm asking for the correction, that we merely add that more than 50 people signed their names to that. You want to make it look like one person invited you to
Will
come
you
to
be
a
quiet
town hall
for a
meeting?
minute? Maybe one of the rest of us can speak.
That'd be a change.
I would say we could change it to Sharon Doe presented, I don't know if correspondence would be the right word. Letters. Maybe presented letters.
Or a petition?
It is a
I didn't see
correspond-
what she gave
it
me,
is a
so I have no
correspondence.
idea.
Well, I read it. I mean, it's an invitation, but it is a
I don't know
correspondence.
if correspondence fits in the sentence I was gonna use. I didn't count them, so
It's 53, I believe.
I guess you could say correspondence with 50 signatures inviting us to a town hall meeting.
Dawn, under Commissioner District 3, when it says about a demonstration of the mobile 311 program, you have semicolon and. It doesn't, that kind of doesn't really make a sentence if you wanted to correct that. In fact, I would put a period after no final decision, this date.
Because the reason why that is because I have discussed the following topics and I detailed out each of the following topics.
Oh, I see what you're saying. You want that as like a separate topic.
Yes.
Okay. I see what you're saying. I thought you were trying to
Um,
connect the two.
Hang on one second, let me finish fixing the other, because I started to. So I have Sharon Doe presented correspondence with 50 signatures, and then I struck out for the board.
Mm-hmm.
And since there's a point of contention as to anything about that, I would like a copy of that. I was not given a copy or given the opportunity to make a copy. So I
Sure.
think that if it's going to be discussed, then I should have a copy in the office for people to look at, because I may have had quite a few people ask me for that this last week. So if any of you would be happy to give me your copy of.
I will.
Okay, so back to the other.
That's fine. I understand what you're saying now. You're using it as a separate topic. I thought you were connecting it to my request to have the highway department give us a demonstration.
No, I tried to just kind of what your topics were, and then I put the motions down below.
Okay.
But I can do that.
And just so we're all clear, it's called a nonprofit. when you talk about an organization, it's a non-profit organization, N-O-N profit. There is really no such thing as a not, you can generalize and say, these are not-for-profit activities,
I think the IRS
but
defines them as not for profit.
as non-profit.
I think not for profit, because I'm almost sure that this theater's tax documents will say not for profit.
I'll have to check, but
I'll look too.
that's not necessarily correction on your part. I've noticed a lot of people around here say that, and it's non-profit. The other thing is, under Council on Aging funding to Sylvan Senior Center, Commissioner Finch provided board members with a breakdown of expenses paid by the Lincoln County Council on Aging to the Sylvan Senior Center that he received on an open records request from the Council on Aging, and identified 3 checks that were deposited into the Sylvan Senior Center private account. Okay. There were 4 checks that you had highlighted, I believe.
I didn't get a copy of that.
Okay.
So he said 3?
Okay. And
I don't.
And the problem is they weren't just deposited into the private account, they were split. And this explanation doesn't explain what he said, which was that it was a refund, basically.
No, I said it's possible it was, I didn't know. I didn't say it was a refund, I said it's possible that it was.
I think you used the word reimbursement.
Reimbursement, that is the right word. But then it goes on to say that were deposited into the Sylvan Senior Center private account and was not recorded in the reports provided by Mike Crackey at a previous meeting. Well, Mike Crackey didn't give us the reports of the private bank accounts at that previous meeting. He gave us the mill levy fund
Right.
reports.
Right.
So what are you trying to say by that sentence?
What I was trying to say is that those were the 3 checks, I think he said missing checks that wasn't reported on that stuff, and he found that it was, because it wasn't reported, it was found in the private account. Right?
Okay, but what we actually found was that a portion, they were split. I mean, I've never done that, but basically the check was split and deposited into 2 accounts. So some of that money out of each check did go into the mill levy fund.
No, 2 of the checks. One was entire. The first one was entirely deposited in
Are you talking about this November one?
Yes, I'm talking about the October one. That one was,
Okay, that one has not, I've actually inquired about that. That one has not, there is no record of that being deposited anywhere, actually. So that's a
well, if
concern.
there's not, then somebody needs to figure out where it's at.
Well,
Because the canceled check was returned, so.
right,
if
so
it
that, the
wasn't-
Council on Aging would have wouldn't they have the reverse side photo of that to see who
I would assume
endorsed
they
it?
did.
That
I
would
didn't
be a
ask-
point of interest
I
for someone.
didn't ask for the reverse or the signature side, I just asked for the.
But
copy of
these
the check.
other checks that you highlighted were split. So it's incorrect to say in the minutes that they were deposited because the totals were not deposited. For whatever reason, I was led to believe that one of these checks, the portion that was deposited into the private account, was a reimbursement for the exact dollar amount of their insurance for the previous year. So that's very misleading.
Okay, you could say partially deposited, I guess.
Okay.
That were partially deposited?
Yes,
Okay.
that would be fine with me. I will inquire.
And there is a
About
point
the
of
backside of the
clarification that
checks.
I'd like to say. During this time, the treasurer, I believe, who did this, is no longer alive. So we can't really find out the reasoning behind that. But I'm pretty sure during that period of time, the person who was the treasurer was Rosella Trapp. And she is no longer with us.
So I added partially, was there any other changes to that?
I think it would be more appropriate to say that, and Mike Crackey had only provided the mill levy account. He never even gave us the private account.
No. and he didn't even give you a detail, so that's why I called it reports.
But you
because
said
it's-
it was not recorded on the reports, as if it was omitted on the reports, and that's not true. He only provided us the mill levy.
Well, apparently that is partially true. If part of the one check was deposited into that account and the other part was into a public account because it
Part
wasn't
of
even
two
recorded.
checks.
Well, he gave us the bank account, so it was in there. It's on the bank statement. We just didn't know what that dollar amount was because it was, you know, $100 and some dollars out of the 1,000. You know,
I don't
100
think it
and,
was listed at all. But what if I say in front of reports, put mill levy reports? Or mill levy fund reports?
That would be cool.
that's a little more clarification, but again, you're all trying to put a negative twist on that as if something was omitted purposefully, when we just were not given the private fund reports because we were given the bank statements.
No, you
From-
weren't
The
given
point of
bank
contention
statements, you
was
were
that the
given
numbers
a
he put-
spreadsheet.
That there was a difference in the numbers that he provided and the numbers that they provided. And so I researched it and found a difference.
You can write that instead. I would accept that perfectly.
Except now you're telling me the one wasn't deposited, so.
Correct. I did research and found that, so I'm glad to see we're both doing our jobs.
Is there any other discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Well, we have to have a new motion. It would be, because he motioned to approve, the new motion would be amended, it would be an amended motion or a new motion for the corrections under the discussion.
I will move to approve the minutes as corrected.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I,
Okay. Eric, I think you're up first.
Morning.
morning.
Good
Good morning.
Well, I got the information you had asked for about that electrical service line we had been talking about for a couple meetings. That is between, to get the, bring you up to speed on it, it is between panel MDP and panel DP. MDP is the main disconnect panel, and DP is just a disconnect panel. That's what the DP stands for. But this wire is existing from the 60s. It was put in between those two panels, buried. The wire itself is not direct burial type wire. It is a type of wire that needs air around it. The pipe they put it in was a perforated drainage pipe. So the whole thing is full of mud, or dirt, all the way. So pulling it out is, they don't think they can pull it out without breaking it, because it's surrounded by dirt. But they are more than willing to give you the salvage of it, what you can cut off between that conduit and panel.
Would the plan be to dig out what's there and replace with new in that same?
The plan is, the price I got from them is to put in a new conduit, buried conduit. They can either do that by a tunneling system, or they can dig up and drop it in, either way.
And I'm just assuming that the shortest distance between the two panels is where the line already exists, so wouldn't you just?
If it does, we'll pull it out and give it to you, because they don't want it.
I didn't
It's
know the
under-
last time that we talked that it was buried. I was thinking
Oh.
it was above, overhead.
apologize.
No, that's okay.
It's under the parking lot, is where it is. So more than likely they'll tunnel, which means they'll do the horizontal tunneling, and just So getting access to it would probably, to the existing would probably be real problem. He says it's tin coated RW wire. RW is not a solid copper wire. So, according to what I'm told. So, he says it's not worth much for scrap. So, that is what we got going there.
It sure wouldn't be worth tearing up the parking lot.
That's my biggest worry, because you're gonna spend, this is a change order for $13,790. It's for, now, I don't have it in front of me, how many feet of wire. But it does not meet the code now. And especially since it is a underground wire that's in underground. So that is a problem. It's undersized for what you're gonna need now.
It's probably just the original
Yeah, it
line
is.
that they put in there.
And the pictures I've seen of it is pretty bad. So we appreciate them finding that as they were tearing into stuff, and so won't give you a problem down the road. So it's my recommendation, now we can drop the size of the panel so we don't put so much load on that, and run another wire over, like a parallel wire over to the panel for maybe some less money. But that would be sort of according to code, put it that way.
No,
This is
we
for
wanna do it-
sure
We wanna do it right.
the way it would, and this I think will perform for the life of the building. So, so I wanted to get all those answers for you before I presented this. So that's what we've got going there, and I think, like I said, it would be to your advantage to do this route than doing the cut and paste route. Yeah, this is from the chiller location to the main panel. And this is the line that feeds the chiller. So, it's a pretty substantial wire. Most of that price there is your wire. Wire and conduit. So,
This boring, this includes the boring of it?
yes, that's all inclusive.
Okay.
So, there shouldn't be any other issues with that wire.
Is this the price that was given to you?
Yes. The second sheet will show it.
It just doesn't, it doesn't say, it just gives a total dollar amount, 13,790. It doesn't say anything about what the breakdown is for labor versus materials.
No, I don't have a breakdown. I submitted this to the engineer for his review, and he wrote me back saying it was in the ballpark of what he would have estimated it to be. So, because I wanted to make sure we weren't, too high. And I wanted to make sure that this was the best option for you versus doing a cut and paste type thing.
I'd entertain a motion to approve change order number 5.
So moved.
Have a motion to approve change order number 5. Do I have a second? I will second. Is there any further discussion?
I need these bags.
This says you need 3 of them? You don't need to
Once I
sign
get
one?
everybody's signature, then I'll give you one back.
Is this being, it says subcontractors, so that means that street's not doing it?
He won't bore it.
He
There'll be
won't
another
bore it.
company bore it.
The street's doing the work.
Well, it just says description of work, subcontractors, 13,790.
Well, he told me they're doing the work, so I don't know what he's saying there.
Are they also doing the replacement of the wiring from the pole
Yeah.
that the city required?
Well, the
Well,
city does it to the,
to the main
transformer.
panel. We take everything from the main panel in.
but that was in the original bid.
Exactly.
So so the city is doing the $10,000 replacement of?
That's the transformer,
Yeah.
the 10,000.
Transformer.
That was just the transformer.
And the base.
Yeah. And
And
that's
closed.
equipment that belongs to the city, not to you. However, you have to pay for it. Real good deal, isn't it?
Is there any further discussion? Not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Nay. I feel like it's hard to make a decision on a lump sum that has no description,
The entire bid was on a lump sum with no description.
and I voted against it.
You want this one back when we get all the signatures?
Sure.
Want that signed?
Yes. They're getting into the electrical now, so hopefully we won't have any surprises. But it is an old building, so let's see what we can do. Do you have any questions for me?
There seemed to be some concern that they were behind. How is that being addressed? Just
This-
on the whole project?
Yeah, right. This change order, if they were behind, this change order, they would put days on it, and they didn't. So they're gonna hold to that final date as of today. So, you know what I'm
I
talking
think
about.
it's the tile people that.
Yeah, the tile people may be behind, but the total project isn't behind. They'll use that time for what they need. See, the subcontractor, flooring contractor, only takes up a certain portion of that total time. So if they're behind, it still doesn't slow down the rest of the work.
Well, it does if someone's work is contingent upon the floor being done.
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't have that many places where that is an issue, so. The laundry will be an issue, and they're starting that, next Monday. Tearing out the floor in there. I just talked with Greg about the moving of the washer and dryers and where they're going and how we're gonna schedule that versus where the flooring is, so. So they seem to be on top of it there.
I could speak to that too.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right. There was a delay in regards to when we were wanting to get the kitchen up and going, just because of there were a few tiles that needed to be popped back out and reset. We just wanted the work to be done right. And so there's the delay that people are upset about is the fact that people can't get back into that dining room and eat and have a social gathering 3 times a day. So the hope is they do have those problems fixed in the kitchen. So they're working on getting that equipment in there, and then hopefully by the end of the week, we'll be using that portion of the dining room, or the front half portion of the dining room to use as a dining room again. And if you guys have time, either now or some point in time today, I'd like to discuss
We
the
don't have
change
time
order.
now.
Yeah, I didn't figure so. The change order that was voted down for the kitchen, because we're not going to put everything back in that storage room because it's not done yet. I just want to speak to that a little bit, if you have an open time at some point in time today, and come back up here.
It would be,
You can probably come at noon. You can have some of my time.
Okay. But that's everyone's biggest frustration. And people's perception is that the project started in January, and families feel like residents have been eating in their rooms since January. Well, it's on Wednesday, it'll be 4 weeks that we've been having to do adjustments. The original hope was 3 weeks, but we have it extended into 4. So it's just frustrating for everybody, and if everyone just hangs in there, we're almost, to a point where we can have some normalcy.
And I understand you're gonna have fluctuation. I was just bringing up the point that, do we need to know how far behind
So
maybe
far,
other
we're-
things would be?
We're within that troubled time, but yes, the flooring has been, and we've had to call him back and have him correct things on both the tile and the vinyl tile. So,
Well,
it's
it's good
just-
that you're catching it now, and we don't have to deal with re-tearing things apart later, so.
yeah, we want to make sure that they have the space they want. I'm sorry, I like that thing.
No, I came in after you.
Okay.
All right,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Rick.
Thanks.
Pat and Kathy, I guess we're ready for you guys.
Just bring a chair up.
Hello?
They must have sailed you through it, Ellsworth, huh?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I'm Kathy Mosher, and I'm the Executive Director of Central Kansas Mental Health Center. I've been there about 4.5 years now. And so I'm here today to give you an annual report of 2017, and then to talk to you a little bit about budget going forward. And that one will be more specific, have some more specific information about Lincoln County and specifics. So I'll start with the overall center's annual report, because I think it gives you a great idea of what we've been up to. And that's the one that looks like this. And it's, what we've been focusing on is 3 main things: better access, better quality, and better outcomes. One of the things that to let you know about, even though it isn't in Lincoln County, we have opened a Martin Youth Center. It's 24-hour, round the clock. It assisted 172 youth in its first full year, and it served Lincoln County residents, and we'll get more specific into in my next one about that. But to let you know that we did that because there were no inpatient psychiatric options within this area for children. And so we thought we don't want to keep sending children to the hospital out in Hayes and Wichita and Topeka. So what can we do to help families stay together, because you lose that disconnect in working with the family. So now we're able to, if we have kids in crisis, or families in crisis, or kids in school in crisis, we can utilize the Martin Youth Center for all residents of our counties. The reason it's in Salina is because that's where I can get enough 24/7 staffing of qualified workers, which there is a shortage of, and so that's why it's in Salina. But we have stabilized 172 youth and prevented the need for them to go into psychiatric hospitalization. We've increased the number of hours in its first full year. It's been successful. The severely and mentally ill adults population, these folks achieved great success this year, and there's some statistics there to talk to you about what we've done there. But I will tell you that the focus has been with this group is homelessness and moving into being able to live independently in their community and maintain that independent living status, and also to provide job training and the skills around job training, skill building to be able to achieve not just in any employment, but meaningful employment for them to sustain that. Then crisis intervention services, a couple years ago, we decided that we can do this better. And so we used to have all our therapists on call, and we manage crisis in between that. What we did was we said, no, we don't want those disturbed, and we don't want those appointments to ever get canceled. So what we do instead is we have a mobile crisis team that has its own therapist, so we can train them specifically to handle crises and to be able to increase the amount of service that we're providing, especially to rural counties. We increased by 36% again this year. We've diverted, out of the calls we get, we divert 58% of those crises from needing hospitalization by the quick and response and the individualized interventions that we work with them. Our local ERs and law enforcement in our counties have also reported a positive difference for us, and it's been especially helpful in rural areas. Then we also decided, you know, we've got to get over, we know there's some more need, especially in Lincoln County, that there are folks who need mental health services that just don't access it. And what are the barriers that are getting in their way? So we've been working on, and I think it was a couple comments you made last year, to look at what can we do to overcome any barriers that they're seeing. And one of the things we came up with was to try to do less office work and take services into the communities themselves. And what we concentrated on this year was taking services into schools and providing on-site therapy and different kinds of services that we have to offer. Lincoln was in one of our pilots to do that. And so we are sending a therapist into the schools. It is, the idea is that we can, it helps with the barriers such as maybe a lack of follow-through from families or stigma that might be associated with coming to the center or transportation issues, kinds of things. So we have received more referrals in the youth through that. The other thing we did was we piloted with some community partners in Salina, and were successful in taking a very high truancy level in Salina down to one of the lowest in the state, 2%. And we would like to work with Lincoln County partners to be able to address truancy issues here too, and we might be able to find some things in the model that we piloted to now replicate in Lincoln County in the future. So the first 3 pages of this is really going to get you up to speed. I'm not going to go in this much detail through all of it, but psychiatric medication and evaluation. I think you're probably aware by now that there is a national shortage of psychiatrists for medication prescribing. And so what we've been doing in this area, one, we have started telemedicine, and the second thing we've done is to work on an integrated care model with primary care physicians, and have Ellsworth is one of our pilots for that in terms of being able to help be consultants and that higher specialty level of consultation for them, and in return they can treat the straightforward depression, some of the things that are uncomplicated, and then in return for them taking on some of those, when they need that higher specialty of psychiatrists, then we get them in sooner than we were. And that has helped increase access by increasing the amount of providers in our community. And Lincoln's been one of those, and we'll get to those statistics for Lincoln pretty soon. But that's to say that we are one of the only licensed mental health centers that are able to provide psychiatrist appointments within 3 days for one of our clients who needs to get in. And usually we can even get them in same day. We've added some urgent hours through that, and sometimes it depends on how many crises we've had come through the door that day. But that's one of the better ones across the state. We added a Healing Through Art program. So we have partnered with Art County Missions and Greater Salina Community Foundation to support providing recovery through art. Some of the children's art was displayed at the Salina Public Library, and we had an open house for that. The adult projects actually were submitted and continued to do well and made it all the way to Washington, D.C. and there's a Christmas tree for each state, and they were put on the Kansas Christmas tree. In addition to that, we are looking at a way to sustain that program in terms of continuing to be able to use art and through healing. So we're excited that has taken off so fast and so well. And we use some local artists too around the area to help us with that. One of the things for better quality and better outcomes means we have to have really strong staff. So we made a huge effort to increase our evidence-based practice models to use best practices that we know that will get results, and to help our staff continue to grow in their professional careers. So 3 of our therapists became certified in trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy, and we have a certified play therapist, and she provides consultation with our other therapists. We offer advanced supervision at no cost to staff, and that's so that they are encouraged and motivated to attain their highest licensure status that they can have in their field of expertise. We have internships for young professionals. We also brought in a world-renowned Dr. Meichenbaum in post-traumatic stress disorder to provide training for our therapists. That's been very helpful with the veteran population, but now we know through ACEs studies and adverse traumatic events that happen through childhood that there are a lot more folks that are affected by trauma than just the veterans. So it's actually something that's going to be helpful to kids and adults alike. We brought in a PhD in anxiety treatment. So exposure therapy is one of the more leading evidence-based practices, and so we wanted to make sure that we were up to speed with those interventions that can help decrease anxiety more quickly through therapy. Psychological assessment. The clinicians who are qualified to provide assessment and testing, they were renewed in their updated training in our testing equipment. And then all staff are offered managing aggressive behavior. We've also expanded our on-site services for St. Francis group homes. That's been such a successful partnership that they asked us to add on to their second group home. And through that, there were 12 who, I think that number's higher now, but at the time this was written, we had 12 kids who were able to go from group home back into a permanent home. And out of those, only 2 ended up re-entering the system, which is a 83% success rate, which for the foster care system is very good. Giving back to the community, we provided 105 free education presentations to various organizations and groups of folks in public. We provided free depression and anxiety screenings in all counties. And we exceeded our goal in these areas. Mental health first aid, same thing. We graduated nearly 800 participants, which means that there are more laymen and just community residents out there who know more about mental health and understand and can help folks have those conversations that are sometimes tough to have, and to be able to effectively get them connected to service. Overall, we broke our records in services for the year. we increased 9%. We went from 85,000 hours to 93,000 hours. The next page talks about who we serve. And the following page, I won't go through all that because you guys can read. But the following is talks about what people are saying about us. From our clients, we have comment cards that are offered, and these are some of the comments we received, and then from our community partners. And then the next page is the financials. That talks about that 80% of what we do is a client fee for service, and that's where we're moving from that model to a more outcome-based model, so that we can instead talk to third-party payers and commercial insurances about outcomes we receive and get paid based on what we accomplish instead of a fee-for-service, which we believe is going to be much better for clients and for community wellness. So we're excited about that, and we're one of the proactive areas to do that, because that's there are a few states who have piloted this, and we're jumping right on board with that. Our expenses are about where they should be, with staffing. Human asset, of course, is our biggest cost, and because we provide a human service, so 80%, and the other part is for operating. Okay. The last page just kind of talks about what makes us different through the state as a licensed community mental health center, and why that is unique in a number of ways. Then there is a page that lists our outpatient services. So you can see that we provide much more than office services. A lot of going into the community where our clients eat, live, and breathe, or go to school, and to support them and really provide that extra support for our highest risk folks. So that's the annual report, and now I can get into a few more specifics with Lincoln County. So Lincoln has supported us for over 50 years. We have, in return, achieved excellent outcomes, at least since I've been here in the last 4 years, and utilize very conservative spending practices and committed to continuous performance improvement. We really do want to get the most out of every dollar for you that we can, and make that investment pay off for people, for lives, but for also counties, state, and communities. We're also designated as the local community mental health center. We're one of 26 of those. Our focus this year has been better access, better quality, and better outcomes. And that's why we're transitioning from that fee-for-service to that outcome-based model, working to prepare for that. And it's just an exciting time, I think, in mental health for CKMHC to be able to be one of the leading mental health centers in taking this to that next level. So the county funding is tied to a statutory mandate for the safety net. It was about $1.5 million that was provided for the uninsured and the underinsured this year through us. And the state and county funding does not cover the gap, or the bigger, I think, thing that makes us nervous is that the number of uninsured is growing. The average contribution that CMHCs receive from counties is, across the state, 7.4 per capita. So we look at per capita because it helps make it a little more apples to apples when we're looking at that. But typically counties, the average is 7.44 per capita. And as you can see in the chart below,
$7.44.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
7.44 makes it sound like a percentage, and I was just clarifying. Okay.
Dollars, right.
Mm-hmm.
So per capita when you talk per capita, you're talking dollars. And so Lincoln County is currently at 5.26. And you know, one of the things that I have felt since I've been here is that Lincoln County really understands the importance and the need for mental health services, and I greatly appreciate that from them and their support over the years. So, why are we a valuable investment for Lincoln? Every dollar invested is proven to prevent costs in other county budget areas. And the local ER, law enforcement, they've reported a difference, but our managed care organizations have also said that their stats are showing that we have, with the opening of the Martin Youth Center, including in Lincoln County, we have prevented the need for less ER visits and hospitalizations for our youth. We have increased medication services in Lincoln County, and crisis stabilization is always available. That is for anyone who, whether they're a client or not, and so that helps reduce juvenile delinquency, truancy, high school dropout, you name it. We increased outpatient services to Lincoln this year by 17.3%. We took services into the community, which we talked about. The budget perspective, health services are increasing in Lincoln County. We are really making efforts to figure out what are the barriers to people getting access, because they don't actively seek us out as much as the other counties. And so we do think there might be more stigma here and things. And we are setting up a meeting with the community partners in Lincoln now. We've made progress but now what we want to do is pull all the Lincoln County partners together and say, how can we further reduce the barriers to people accessing the mental health services?
Who are the community partners?
The health department, the hospital administrator, Steve, and there's more of them I can rattle off for you right now.
Okay, I just out of curiosity, I didn't recognize that terminology.
Yeah.
Community partners.
Well, every year we do a needs assessment for each county individually, and this will be part of our needs assessment this year, to work with community partners to say what are the mental health needs of and behavioral health needs of Lincoln County, and how can we help. And then we try to tailor our strategic plan towards accomplishing those. Okay, and that's how we came up with the better access, better quality, better outcomes. So our budget proposal, from $7.44 per capita to $5.26, which is what Lincoln's currently doing, so I think that says a lot, and I know that you have other things to consider. So what we're asking for this year is an increase of 3%. It's not going to cover the gap in what we provided this past year, but we do, what I look at is
What gap?
the gap of what the funding that we have for the safety net versus the safety net that we served.
Okay, last year when you provided the budget, it said the same thing. You know, it gave all the statistics of what the expectations are for our output, but it gave no numeric report of how many people were served, or, I mean, you have a statement here about increasing outpatient services by 17.3%, and I guess, you know, you can take that 1,127 hours and decide how much that is, 17% of what number, but it doesn't, I guess when I asked last year, you did send in a report then. They gave a statistical numbers to how many, you know, heads were actually served in Lincoln County and how many hours. But that report failed to say how much of what percentage of those costs were covered by insurance. So we still don't know in Lincoln County how much we're paying into, and this is a very valuable program, I understand that. I mean, we do need mental health services. I'm not negating the fact that it's necessary. Just from my perspective, and I'm not speaking on behalf of the board, but I'm just saying for an open communication here, we still don't know what percentage, you said a gap, but we don't know what percentage of your cost was covered by insurance, and then how much more did we pay into your financials that may have covered services that are offered elsewhere.
Right.
So that information is still not in this year's report again.
Right. That's data that there's certain data, as you have probably learned, there is data that you can get and there is data that is not available. And when we are developed as an agency, we serve a 5-county population with services for what we do. So I can pull some of that out for you, but that's why I need your specific requests on what you're asking for, so I can get that to you. And I think you're taking notes, right, for me to.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's kind of what you did for us last year, because you followed up with a report that you mailed to us.
So what was missing last year?
Well, you gave us a number as to how many residents you served and then how many hours.
Yeah.
But in that report, it did not mention what percentage of their cost to your Central Kansas Mental Health was, again, covered by insurance. So I understand you have a concern about people that are uninsured, but we really don't know in Lincoln County. You know, we were giving, for example, last year in 2018, we gave $16,346.
Sure.
And while I understand that may not come close to covering what the services were that were provided for
Sure.
the number of people that you, and I can't pull those numbers out of my head right now from your report from last year, but that $16,346, I mean, did 16,000 of it just cover the uninsured portion of your billing? And then that $346 was then left over for administrative costs that you incur in other counties? Do you see what I'm saying? Lincoln is very small, and we're probably one of the smaller percentages of where your resources go. And just to give you an idea of the numbers that we're working with, in the last 5 years, because your report goes back 6 years, from 2011, well, I guess that's almost 7 years, but if you include this year, but from the report, we actually were just handed a report that's generated by K-State, and in the last 5 years, our property taxes have gone up 44%. I mean, that's a huge climb. Our interest that we've been able to earn on our accounts has gone down by 31%. So we do have a very large discrepancy in the way that we're raising taxes and not even able to make money on the money that we have.
Sure.
And if a portion of our funding is being utilized for resources that you expend in counties outside of our border, it's just very hard for us to make an increase to you. I understand everyone's budgets go up every year. That seems to just be the trend that everyone's following. But if we don't know from you what portion of our utilization of your resources was covered by insurance, then we don't know how much cash was expended over and above what your actual cost was.
Right, okay. So we also provide services in other areas that you're utilizing. So it's not as clean as you'd like it to be, that what's in Lincoln is in Lincoln. And that's a lot, like I said, because of staffing issues, to staff the amount of programs that staff take to do that, to be able to fund that. So we utilize that, and for rural areas, what we're doing is working on transportation kinds of issues, some of that, and then some of that is bringing it more to Lincoln County. So it's when you're at 5.42 per capita.
$5.42.
Yeah, and the average is at $7. It makes it a little more difficult. It's already more expensive to serve the rural areas, and it makes it a little more difficult to continue to make sure that we're doing the things you're wanting us to do.
When you say transportation issues, does that mean to get people from out here to Salina, where some of these services are offered?
It could be that, or it could just be to get them to the office here. That's why we're going into the schools, and now we're working with the other community partners to see where else we can go.
Have you contacted our county bus and let them know that you can work with them and refer people that may need your services to use it? Because we already fund a county bus that's available every day during working hours.
Right, and those are not available as urgent type things. Those are more planned type things that we do use those for. And so there's a gap in where transportation can and can't go. So we're working on doing some of that ourselves, but that's completely unfunded. And we're doing it anyway because we know it's the right thing to do, and we're working towards that. But that's why we're here saying, just pointing out the difference. And then in terms of the number, what we do know was that we spent $1.5 million, $1.5 million, to provide those services. Again, that's an aggregate number that we use, and trying to figure out how to get that gap covered, and then helping you understand that gap by understanding what most counties are getting from their,
That 1.463 million, that was for 5 counties?
yes.
Is that what you said?
Uh-huh, yeah, that's the aggregate. And then, so, what we would like to look for is we understand that you have other issues and that you can't necessarily cover that gap, but a 3% investment would allow us to continue to figure out how to overcome those barriers. Some of those barriers are unfunded. Crisis services largely are unfunded because largely the folks who are using those are uninsured.
Well, and it may be that in Lincoln County, we far exceed, we don't have access to that information. We can't
Right.
say, 17 people were seen for crisis emergencies last year, because that's not a statistic that we would have access to, but
Right.
you do. And for that to not be included kind of makes
Right.
it skewed as far as what we're determining as a per capita amount that we need to invest to cover that area. And I understand what you're saying, we send people from Lincoln County to receive services, but you would still have those statistics to know that Lincoln Countyans were receiving those services elsewhere, in
Yeah.
Salina where this would be offered. But I know, for example, in the juvenile detention situation, Lincoln County had, thankfully, 1 person last year. I mean, that's good. If we can keep those numbers down for us, that's a.
But you have one of the highest truancy rates in the state.
So what does that mean? Does that mean that they're just not being prosecuted?
Not necessarily.
What happens if we have a high truancy rate but no one is going to juvenile detention for it?
Well, I'm not a juvenile detention expert, but when I see that the truancy rate is that high, we know that we're gonna have more dropouts, we're gonna have more trauma, we're gonna have more of those ACEs scores, which are more likely to lead to negative effects. in
Did
the
you mean
adult.
highest truancy rate in the 5 counties?
I believe you have, yes, you are the highest in our 5 counties.
The highest in all 5?
That
Is
is
that-
not a truancy, is not why we have the juvenile detention center.
Right.
That has to be criminal activity. Truancy is not considered criminal.
Oh, truancy is not criminal? I didn't realize that.
No, it's
That's
not
my
prosecutable.
misunderstanding.
It can get to that point, but
So it is.
it can be.
Just because somebody comes to school, you don't send them to Junction City.
Right. Right.
Why would you send anyone who comes to school just because they come to school to Junction City?
If they don't come to school.
If they don't come to school, that isn't something that you can send the child to Junction City Detention Center.
So
Not
it's
anymore.
not a
Not
criminal-
anymore,
it's not
they've
criminal,
changed the model.
But it lowers the graduation rate and the outcomes for the child.
So
as
is that a
well.
county number or is that by USD number?
You'd have to ask someone who's an expert in juvenile detention for that.
No, but you said
The
you
truancy.
know that the truancy rate is the highest here. Does that mean for the whole county or by a particular USD?
I think it was by county. That was, the
Yeah.
report was by county.
It was by county.
Hmm.
And those are some of the things we look at when we're doing needs assessments to see where we can help, and that was one of the reasons why we started working on bringing on-site services into the schools. Once we get that partnership together, we also know that, coming to the mental health center, maybe there's some stigma around that or some fear around, we get tagged with, we're part of the system sometimes, and they worry that just because they come here, that we may be connected with SRS or DCF now, and those kinds of issues create some angst among folks. And so by bringing services into the school, one of the things that it can do is to say, okay, well, if you're going to do it at the school and help my kid, I don't mind. And so sometimes that breaks down some of those barriers and fears to get the relationship started. Then when you get the relationship started with a couple families and they start talking to each other, then that's how that stigma can be broken down, is to be able to hear that, hey, it's okay to get mental health services.
Do you think there's a possibility that just some of these rural families are seeking mental health services through their PCP? Instead of a separate
There are
mental
no
health
mental
facility?
health center, I am not aware of Lincoln offering mental health counseling, but they do offer some medication. Sometimes there are private providers and things around, and we're not particular about where they get help. We just want them to get help. And so, but in our rural areas, what we know is that people can't sustain a business in these small rural areas because of there's a lot of factors. So they often have a lack of those. So we're kind of it.
When
So
you
we wanna
say
make
you
sure-
weren't aware of Lincoln County offering the mental health counseling, does that mean other counties are funding internal county-provided mental health? Or when you say you weren't aware of Lincoln County offer, does that mean like through our county-owned hospital, or?
Well, I meet with Steve on and off,
Mhm.
periodically,
Mhm.
along with all the administrators with medical, because we're doing this integrated care system. And so the last time I knew, they were still looking at behavioral health. We even went over and looked at their basement to see if that might be a location where we could grow, or a location that would maybe be more conducive, so when people come to get their medical help, they could also be there for that. So we've looked into a few of those things, and we have to look at a lot of issues around those things, and been trying to strategize about how we can do things differently, tailor things more to what is going to be effective in Lincoln County. So our strategic plans are tailored for Lincoln County. Some of our data is aggregate, some of our data is for Lincoln. So it just depends on what you're asking for, and I'll do whatever I can to get you the answers you would like to have.
Do other counties internally fund mental health services separate from employing or contributing to Central Kansas Mental Health?
Mhm.
What, can you give me an example?
Oh, do they?
I don't think they
Like,
fund
does
it
Ellsworth?
directly.
huh?
No.
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 No,
They're
most of
private
them are
providers
working.
then.
Most of them are working with us, but like the FQHC in Salina, I know they provide, and there's a lot of private providers in Salina. Is that what you're asking? And then you have things like school social workers and school counselors. So we're not the only one in town. We're just dedicated to saying what are the needs and what are the gaps that aren't getting filled, and how can we help.
Well,
So
we have broader
however
range
we
of
can help, we're
service.
happy to do that. I'm sorry, what?
Well, we have a broader range of service than private providers would have. For example,
Yeah, so
Page
case
behind.
management and attendant care,
all
respite,
of these.
72-hour crisis intervention. Our Martin House has 4 beds. It's a 4-bedroom unit. It's very homey and soothing. It's for kids who are in crisis, to try to prevent the need for hospitalization and to prevent out-of-home placements. And that does directly affect juvenile delinquency, foster care, some of those things. And Lincoln County's been using that, and it's been very successful there. So there's a world of variety of services. The big thing right now is that the amount of folks seeking services that are uninsured is growing, and that's that safety net. So if the funding doesn't keep up with that, then that's going to be a dangerous position to be in. And so that's what we just are trying to
Do you also
alert you to that information.
do you also statistically advertise, what your overhead operating costs are? Have you tried to make that a point of marketing, so to speak?
I mean, in terms of like
What are you asking?
development. Development is
Whatever
that-
Central Kansas Mental Health overhead operating costs are, whatever percentage of your budget that may be, you know, that may be a good marketing tool for you to describe why your services are indeed patient-centered.
Oh, right, right. And some of that is on that page about being a licensed community mental health center. So it talks about the revenue that we make is reinvested to meet the needs of the communities we serve, rather than to generate profits. And then give some examples of some of those evidence-based practices that have resulted in some great client outcomes. So I don't know if that's kind of what you're getting at, but we do, I think that's a great idea to do some marketing around that. So we can, I appreciate that. So I want to thank you for the support that you've given us over the years and understanding the value of having mental health available to your residents. And we get new ones every year, and we're glad that that's going in the right direction, because we do feel like the need here is bigger than what's being accessed. And so we are trying very hard to break down those barriers to connect people with that access, and always looking for good ideas to do that. Any other questions about that? I will tell you too that suicide in Kansas, we're higher than our surrounding states, and that even younger, for 10, from age 10 and up. And it's the second leading cause of death for ages 10 to 34, and that's just Kansas. Then we're like 19th out of the 50 states. And then to understand the cost is, $1.2 million for a suicide. So when you look at what, not only the life you can save and the quality of life you can help by people seeking treatment and getting that help to get that quality of life back, but the amount of cost involved in one suicide being $1.2 million, when you look at first responders and coroner reports and investigations and family trauma and expenses, it goes on and on and on, and those are national statistics too for Kansas.
What's the number one for that age group? You said suicide was number
I
two.
think accident.
Car accident. For the younger ones, car accidents, yeah. Is there any other questions I can?
I just wanted to say you had a training here at the high school this past Monday, just for, I went. It was very good at Cody Sparks. But I was disappointed that there were no school people that attended at all.
I know they've had a lot of turnover at the school and are trying to get their feet under them. Last time, let's see, I think the superintendent was operating also as principal, and I think they've filled that position now. So I'm hopeful that, hopefully that can.
Because it was an issue that really, because of the statistics you just called, in regard, the training was in regards to suicide and how schools can play an important part in that.
And we're happy to do that for the school folks, just as if we can get them to reserve some time or set some time up, we would love to do that for them. Thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.
Right.
Thanks for your time today.
Thanks for the
Thank you
information.
for coming.
And Terry, I want to thank you in particular for taking the time to be part of our board and to always make sure that Lincoln's being advocated for in every meeting we have, and you do a great job of that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Michael, you're up, I guess. Good morning, everyone. Good morning.
Start out, we got the K-18 911 sign project all completed. And that project cost us roughly $3,200. I didn't know if you guys wanted to do another project this year, maybe like 14 highway, or do we want to save that for next year?
Is that a cost sharing program?
No.
So
We
that
did
was
out of budget.
3,200 out of the 30,000 in the budget?
We are starting the project today, actually, on the high-risk rural roads, which is 100% funded to do the eastern half of the county on our FAS routes, so.
We'd probably be looking at another $3,000 to do 14, roughly.
In the ballpark, I have not pulled the total number of intersections or anything across that, so
I think we plan on it at least for the year.
Sure.
I don't
at
know
least
if
put some numbers together and
Begin the process.
Yeah.
That sounds good.
if we don't keep going on it, it'll never happen, so.
Could we also start a plan for those major collector roads that are identified? I've had several people issue some concerns, and I know I brought it up when the EMS department came in, and they said they don't find it to be an issue, but I still get phone calls, and it's not just EMS, I'm just saying there are times when it may just be someone visiting, but they can't identify a road if the sign's not there. And a lot of times the chintzier signs break off. I mean, that's happened just
Yeah,
on,
it's
yeah.
very common.
Right, so, while we're moving ahead with this, if you do 14 and 6, those are roads at least to the interstate. Then we could maybe focus on the routes of some of those major collector roads. That would be a good project internally within the county, those aren't just the state highways and paved roads. I think we all know GPS is about worthless out here.
It doesn't tell you whether it's a dirt road or a gravel road either.
Right.
Last time I was here, I mentioned something about some tanks through CVA or Farmway that potentially be for sale. I contacted them and they said that they are only selling their nurse tanks. And they stated they do not own those tanks, that Farmland Industries does. Farmland went bankrupt 10, 11 years ago, somewhere in that neighborhood, so. I'm still trying to do some backleg work on that and see if I can locate the owner of those tanks, because the way it sounds, they won't be in use, or
How big were those? What are the
11,000 gallon, I think they were
Do you have like any kind of dimension?
8 foot diameter. I can't remember for sure what it was off the top of my head.
Yeah, we didn't stop and actually measure them, but ballpark, I would say, yeah.
By-
16 foot.
They were 30-some foot long, I believe. The way we calculated it, there's 3 tanks there. If we could cut the ends off all of them, cut one of them in half, and then weld the half onto the other, then we'd have 2 usable culverts. So. I have 2 gravel agreements for your approval. One will be with Timothy Shaw and one with Mark Murray.
Shaw is where?
Be over on the East County line. I don't know exactly what section that is.
Shaw?
Be right east of Kennesaw,
Oh, okay. I didn't know what his name was. Okay, yeah, all right, understand.
Cleveland.
Well, we got gravel out of there
Yeah.
earlier this year, or last year, yeah. Seems to be doing pretty good, too.
Yeah, I think it's been good gravel.
And there is still a pile there too, right?
Yeah, there's still some pile, I think there's some more to be piles.
Do people seem to understand the rotation of everyone being from basically March 31st, and then it can be however many years, but then the 6-month leeway to be able to get the material out? Does that seem to be all right with everyone so far?
So far, it's been all right.
That's good.
Move we approve gravel agreements with Shaw and Murray. I think one of them is, are they both 21? One of them's 19,
Mhm.
Murray's is,
21,
Murray's is 21,
yes.
and Shaw's is,
I think you have it backwards.
Backwards? Yeah, it's backwards.
Oh, backwards.
Murray's is 19.
I'm sorry, Don. Get that?
Yep.
I have a motion to approve gravel agreements. Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I received correspondence from the state of Kansas that we did not get funded for the 2020 fiscal year high-risk rural roads program. So we'll be looking at 2021 for the earliest to receive additional funding for that.
That was for all the minor collectors, right?
Yes, sir. And moving along with OS 87, and Cliff with Kirkam Michaels visited with all landowners involved in right-of-way purchasing. Everybody's in agreement with the offer that was made on the right-of-way. There is a little dispute in the temporary easement cost.
What was this for?
OS 87 right-of-way acquisition.
In the amount of money they were getting paid.
On the temporary easement, they were offered $50 an acre, and one landowner's gonna have 600 square feet of tilled ground that could or could not be used during the construction. And they thought that number was a little bit low at $50, and they'd like to, recommended that they get paid $300 on 600 square feet, and that would be what, 0.01 acres.
Yeah, it was .014. So.
And the actual acquisition of the right-of-way itself is going to be 0.13 acres, and that comes in at $312. So I didn't know if you guys wanted to do a counter offer on how much to offer on temporary easement.
It is temporary easement, so they're gonna get it back when the project is completed.
And they're gonna have access to it if we're not using it?
Nah, it's gonna be part of the project, so if the contractor wants to stockpile something there.
But if he doesn't?
If he doesn't,
I mean, could they put a crop in there and just take a chance, just like?
There'd be a chance.
Yeah.
Like
It could all
might
be
be the
destroyed.
flood basins of the lakes.
right.
It's
So we-
600 square feet.
Yeah.
What's an acre? 4,300, 43,700 something.
Yeah, it was 0.014 acres.
Yeah.
It was very minimal. You know, and I guess we figured if they plant 80 bushel corn on it, it would come out to
Like $5.
$5 of lost crop.
Would they agree to us just reimbursing them for the lost crop if that happened? Can that be a stipulation?
Be a
I mean,
question
how
for
else
Cliff.
do you, what do they want?
They recommended 300 is what they offered.
We offered them 50 and they came back with 300.
Per acre?
No.
For the temporary use.
For
For the
that
600
600 square feet?
Yes, correct. Does seem like that's a little bit outrageous, to be honest.
Oh, that's 6 times.
You say that,
one.
Norman?
What do those natural gas pipelines pay per acre for damages when they come in and tear up your field? They pay real good.
I don't know.
And in fact, it's just say it's an acre of ground. If you get 30 bushel to the acre for beans at $9 a bushel, that's $270 an acre gross he's losing.
But it's not an
Yeah,
acre.
It's point
It's
zero
600
one.
It's a
square
tenth of an
feet.
acre.
0.01, so
So it's a tenth of that.
Hundredth of
It's a
an
hundredth of an acre,
Oh.
yeah.
Oh,
An
excuse
acre
me.
is approximately 200 by 200 square feet.
acre. That's 43,560 square feet. If you take the square root of that, it would be
Square it up.
560 or 250? I just wrote 250.
43,560 and then the square root.
I guess, is there another landlord that
Is this
we can
be,
get the temporary easement on?
I don't believe so. I mean, I don't know if you wanna,
I think it's outrageous myself. It's totally outrageous, I think.
What he's gonna grow on there is gonna make $3,000 an acre.
I think you're offering him certainly, well, an extremely good cash rent.
is this just because it's an estimated area of space that we're going to be utilizing?
it will be defined with surveys. It will be an exact amount that will be staked out.
That's temporarily,
It temporary.
Right.
We may or may not
and
use
it's just
it.
this year, basically. We
Yeah.
expect to have
This
the
fall.
project done.
Yes,
Okay. For a year, let's say, or something like that.
6 months at the most. But right now, that's our only holdup is getting a settled price and getting approved and cutting a check and getting the property deeded.
Let's just meet halfway,
What's that?
make an offer in between. I mean, I don't
But
think
he-
with this
I guess
kind
the
of,
other thing is, what do you sell it to us? Why are you doing the rest of the money? The same price. I mean, you know, if we take possession of it, I guess is,
Well, obviously, I think we could buy it cheaper than what he's wanting to do a
Well,
temporary
that's
easement. I
what
didn't
I'm-
figure the numbers on that, but
that's what I am saying. I think his asking is more than what it's actually worth.
what's it look like? Is it an embankment or?
if we were to purchase it,
Is it the flat corner of the
it would
field
be $33.60 at the same rate that we were buying the other.
from the same owner?
Wait a minute,
No, that's not right. Anybody that can hedge money.
if it's .014 and it's $2,400 per acre.
Yeah, so, see where the bridge is at, and you can see the blue line.
Mhm.
That would be that corner.
Mhm.
$60.
So it's the flat ground that comes to the embankment right there.
2,400 times .014.
And the contractor may put stuff on it, they may not, it just depends on.
It's
how
just so
they're
it's
gonna-
available,
Right.
and if we mess it up, it's already taken care of.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, I don't think we can squabble over a couple $100 when it's gonna cost us what for this project? Close to 200,000, aren't we?
A little less than that, hopefully around 130, I think is what it estimated, but yeah. If we do it for one, I think it'd only be fair
Oh, I
to
think you have to do
offer
it
it
for
to the
all,
other.
yeah. I mean, you're gonna have X amount per acre for a temporary easement, I guess.
Well, it gives us access to clean out under that bridge in the future.
Long ways into the project, pull off of it. Over,
$100.
So did you determine a purchase price, what you were purchasing from the other? portion?
Yeah.
What was it?
$2,400 per acre. And one landowner, that would be $744 for 2 tracts of ground there. One tract on another landowner's $312, and then another landowner a tract for $201.
So what does that cost then for, what did you say it was, 0.14 of an acre, or what did it come to?
0.014.
Oh, 0.
I came up with $33.60. 2,400 times .014.
My calculator, can't do that in my head.
So
And we offered them 50.
we offered them 50,
They're gonna get it back.
and they get it back.
But what do you do if they refuse the offer? I mean, let's make a bid halfway and offer to buy it with that. Under his 300, but more than our 50, and
I
just
don't know if we
purchase it.
really want to buy it though, because then it's added maintenance,
Yeah.
stuff that we'd have to take care of, and or they would go ahead and be farming it anyways.
But it looks to me if that bridge length is expanding, which is why we need it, right? Then it gives us access to get under or beside it. I mean, how far in is that?
Well, we still, in the bottom part, we have access to the bridge.
Yeah, so we're buying some additional
Yeah.
right away for it. This is just temporary construction.
Oh, I don't know, I don't have a solution
don't
for that
know.
one.
There is no other place to do construction besides on this little piece of
So you're
ground.
saying if we moved that portion and added that to the other landowner,
That's another,
that would be, you have to talk to Josh.
But isn't that because you, I mean, the picture you showed me, it looks like that portion you're talking about is on the edge of where the actual construction's gonna be. You need that for accessibility, right?
So I think the road's getting closed, so I don't think they're gonna put a shoe fly or
No.
anything in.
It's too deep for a shoe
So then
fly.
that's just potentially storage ground.
For
Well, then it can be anywhere.
contractors stockpile dirt,
Okay.
store, equipment.
I would,
More than likely, a shoe fly will go in
For that,
construction.
for
yeah.
construction access.
Not
yes.
for
It's not right, right.
And I'm guessing they chose that side for a reason though.
I don't know.
I would try the other, I would see if there's another place. I mean, that's ridiculous, I'm sorry. We're being held hostage.
Come in and.
We're being held hostage here, I think.
I mean, they're gonna benefit from the bridge. I don't understand it, but.
You don't understand, it's still his property, it's individual rights.
Yeah.
So
Ask him to come and negotiate with us directly then.
I could do that.
I mean, for a few $100s, honestly, on a $130,000-$40,000 project, you know, if the engineer expects to be able to use that portion, I mean, do we really just circumvent completely? I don't know. Sooner or later, everyone's going to be doing this. We do realize.
See if he would like to come visit. That being said, we visit with him and he says, oh, don't worry about it, I'll just take the $50, will you guys be fine with the numbers
Yeah.
for purchase?
Mhm.
I guess you guys can look through those numbers if you'd like.
Do we need a motion, Don?
I don't think so, because they'll bring back
Okay.
the sheets once they're finalized and.
That's part of the total project, wouldn't it be? Total project?
No, I think their sheets make you guys sign off on them, don't they, still?
For the purchase.
So once
It
they
can be
get
done then.
done negotiating, then you bring them back into the commissioners have to sign off on that form.
That I'm not sure of.
Yeah, that'd be Cliff McDonald, he's our land acquisition guy, but that'd be a question for him.
Can't think of what it's called, but
It's like the quit claim deed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
no, they'll have that, but I thought there was a property value form that you used to send in.
Okay.
I'll look and see if I can see it. I thought the commissioner signed off on it.
And I was also wondering if you guys would allow us to advertise for some part-time seasonal help for spraying and mowing, 2 separate positions. Deborah put together some job descriptions. I do know last year for spraying the eastern one half of the county, that we logged 110 hours, and it took in the neighborhood of 6 to 7 weeks total to get that accomplished.
Michael, it's the form that's called Lincoln County Real Estate Acquisition Form. And it's asked that the estimator sign it and then the county approve it. So maybe that's what you gave them?
I think he was working off of one of those with the appraisers, so.
Okay. I think once you get that all finalized, then you bring them back down.
Sorry.
Okay.
Okay.
First of all, is this the only thing they're going to do, or this is their primary job and they're gonna be available to work 40 hours a week, or what do we got here?
I believe I would like to do it just strictly part-time. If there's no mowing to be done, they're not gonna be at work.
They're not
If
gonna
there's
be
no
at-
spraying to be done, they won't be at work.
So if it's windy, so
It's
that's gonna
windy,
be a
if it's
little,
too hot, it's gonna be very
daily,
sporadic. Yes.
Can we incorporate, especially in this, well, either position, I mean, if they can get out and off of their vehicle and haul debris up out of culverts and pile it, pile boulders that have been collecting in the windrows, I mean, I think we need to take advantage of the help that's being there and not just expect them to blow by in a vehicle and leave all of these things unattended, as has been done for, 30 years.
So on a day they can't mow, you'd like to see them going out and
Well, and
doing
even while
something
they're
else.
already there, I mean, if you're taking the time to utilize the gas to be driving by something, and, I mean, it doesn't take that long to stop, get it off the road, collect it into some sort of pile, and, I mean, it'd be up to you, I guess, to coordinate who would pick that up, but there's quite a bit of physical labor that could be, I mean, we talked about this last year, I think it's a great idea, and I think they can do even more than just blow by on a mower with 2 strips, jump off and get that boulder, get that tree limb that's been hanging there for 3 years. And it says here, assist with tree trimming, tree removal, and other vegetation control, but let's not assume that that's only if they're called to be with the tree trimming crew, And there are quite a few times I've stopped and moved things off the road.
I think they could be instructed to pick up the rocks, big rocks. They lay by, I don't think that's an issue.
I didn't know that you were actually allowed to spray chemical without a license yourself. How does
You
that
can
work?
work under
he works
someone
under
with
the
a license.
director.
But he doesn't have to have any formal training or...
Not spraying
Commercial.
herbicides or stuff like that. If you're spraying insecticide or something like that, you have to.
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. So is this gonna be countywide, or are you gonna, one position each, person? County-wide or regionally?
Depends on who applies. You know, I think we might be lucky to get one application, you know, I don't know. We've ran out interviews and stuff, or not interviews, but applications before, and we never got anybody to apply.
Because you have to be 18,
I
right?
don't think he's implying that they would be in one area. They would be all over.
You know,
There would
because
be-
No,
usually,
how far they
usually
can
when
get.
we're,
I know you can't cover the whole county.
if we employ a part-time seasonal mower operator, more than likely they will be working with a blade guy
in various parts of the county.
in various parts of the county where they're needed at the time.
You have to be 18, right? But
Yeah,
you might want to put that in the ad. Some 17-year-olds graduate.
I don't have a problem with it.
I think it's great.
We used to employ summer help in the spray department.
And I've done some research on the NJPA and how some other, or another county had worked on this, and Clay County has recently, I believe just last month, put out to John Deere and Caterpillar new motor graders this year. And this is all the information they were able to provide me. This was not a direct NJPA purchase. Their commission was a little bit hesitant to it, just not understanding it. They are hoping to get the individual, there's a representative in Kansas City that's hoping to come out to Clay County. I'd like to see, potentially I'd get them to come out here and visit with you guys. I mean, NJPA is something that can be utilized, I think, by every department in the county to some extent. But what they did was they requested the NJPA pricing and discounts, and these were the bids that came back.
Am I missing Caterpillar's bid? Or is this all?
Pretty much to the back.
I think they're in the,
John Deere 670G, 276,000.
yeah, they're the last 3 or 4 pages, 5 pages.
Yeah.
12M3, 2018. Their price, oh, 267.5. I assume they'll be, if you contact them, they'll be coming in to give some solicitation presentations.
Who would,
John Deere and Cat.
if that's what you would like.
Well, didn't you
You know,
want,
we
I thought you wanted Jay,
either like to do, personally, I'd rather like to do NJPA or piggyback off of these quotes.
yeah. I think NJPA said he's wanting to bring in to talk to us. That's
Who's
that
NJ?
statewide buying.
Oh.
National Joint
Nationwide
Powers
buying.
Alliance. Purchasing Alliance.
And you said this is,
That is not direct through NJPA.
this is not through.
Because NJPA, you pick what you want and you buy it. It's already been bid. Everything that they have listed has already been bid at a government.
So they will
approved
bring a
price.
bid to us,
Or provide us with,
provide us a bid,
Sales agreement.
a sales
I
agreement,
believe that's how it works.
but will the price be on it? A guaranteed price?
Should be, yes.
And does it have the 5-year buyback?
They quit calling it that. I forget what
Okay.
they call it now. And a lot of counties have switched that to a 7-year, just in case they're unable to do it every 5 years, or if they're gonna go over on hours a little bit, but
Well, it's not a have to anyhow,
No, none of it is.
yeah.
No.
Just gives you an option of doing it.
Correct.
But what you're saying is that you think that
And those,
Cat and John Deere would honor these prices,
Because they've already been offered.
except these got trade-ins.
Not on
Some.
the total price. The trade-ins
I
are
mean,
separately
they-
marked.
Do they trade theirs in, or are they selling them outright, or they don't know?
I can't remember if that was just an offer.
Gotcha.
I believe they might have been trying to sell them outright, but what
Okay.
was there,
It said
$107,000?
the trade-in
Yeah.
allowance
Yeah, I see that, yeah, they have
was
100,
separate,
they have,
107,335.
I guess
and are the specs on these machines what we want?
they will be very similar.
355, sorry.
You know, the reason why I coupled those, the prices were a little bit different. Even on the Deere bid was, they were dealing with Ripper on it. So, see, Deere had one at 276,000, and they had one at 267,500. And then Caterpillar offered at 262,000 per machine.
Like, we don't know whether, none of them had a ripper on them, or do you know?
No, what Ronnie had told me that they were able to take from their machine
Oh, I see, they have,
and just a little bit of fabrication, they were able to just swap it over
slop it over, I see,
from a cat to a cat.
yeah, okay.
I guess my question is to you guys, what direction you want me to go so we can get on with this process? Do you want me to do a flat out bid like we've done in the past, allow to go in JPA, or allow to go on a piggyback off of these bids right here?
I think you do an RFP for all of the above.
I guess I, just off the top of my head, wonder if we aren't better dealing with the dealers or the companies directly instead of through a third party. That worries me a little bit. Where we would have a dealer that we can
We will.
hold
We will have our same dealer.
You're still purchasing
using
from that
JPA.
company.
from,
It will be direct from Foley out of Salina, Kansas,
okay.
or Topeka, John Deere.
They're protected territories, that long cat is in here, it used to be.
You know, the same salesman, I believe, does the paperwork to do an NJPA as they do bid process.
Well, I think it'd be interesting to see what NG does, I mean, what
They
they can
basically
do
what
for-
it is-
if they can save us any money, I guess that comes down
2%
to it.
is basically what I've been told that NJPA does on heavy equipment.
2%, that's their charge,
No, that's what they cut.
that's what they
the
can cut.
dealer usually offers. By using the program, you get 2%.
2% off of 400,000 is not something to sneeze at, I guess, it's significant.
Well, I would say we try it. We don't have to do it, right?
I don't believe so. I will do a little bit more checking.
I mean, if the bids don't come in where we think they ought to be, I would think we'd have to accept them.
Well, it's just a matter of doing an RFP directly to each company for the exact model that you're looking at, getting a response from them and doing a comparison to this, what'd you call it, NJPA program. I mean, the numbers will speak for themselves.
Do you think there'll be a savings piggybacking with Clay County, or?
They would offer the same price that is quoted right here. That is the piggyback price.
Is this through the
But
NJPA?
you don't know what it would
No,
be separate.
This is not,
This was just to them getting a bid,
This is not,
but it was shared with you so that you have something to go on to
Yes.
see what a comparative number is. So that's one. Two
You know,
would be
and-
NJPA.
what I was told was that both Deere and Caterpillar put what the NJPA price would be on these bids.
So I think it behooves us to double check that and go ahead and go through NJPA and request to see what, I mean, do you just do an RFP through them?
I'm still a little bit unclear on the actual process with that NJPA. From what I understand is you pick what you want and that's what you go with, you know. You're not gonna do 3 different machines.
They already have a
Through the
list of
NJPA.
what they've gotten secured prices
You-
on, and you pick from that
You
list.
pick the equipment, you pick the equipment that you want on it,
Is
and
there,
they give you a price.
is there a cost of a fee to belong? How-
No. But I don't,
So how do we look at the list?
Same way you do when you bid it, you just spec out certain equipment and certain
you
horsepower.
list all your specs and everything and you
Yeah.
go from there.
So it is an RFP, pretty much, to see if they
In a
have
way,
it.
yes. You know, when NJPA offers you something, it has already went through the RFP at a national level.
And you're just finding which one qualifies for what you're looking for. It's already been formulated for a number.
It's price of it.
Mm-hmm.
This is kind of hard to explain, but I understand the theory behind it. You know, it's a joint purchasing alliance that is able to save people money.
Well, it's
I
pool
guess
marketing.
I'm still, though, here it says in this letter, Clay County has recently joined the NJPA, so please include any discounts or pricing so we qualify. So is this actually the same thing as, you don't know?
It's not the same.
I think
It's
what they're
not the
basically
same.
saying is, be aware that we can establish pricing that has already been verified and sold through NJPA. So if you're not in that alliance, you're not privy to know what those items have sold for in the past. Therefore, if the dealer wants to make a direct offer to you, it may or may not be closely aligned with what they've given other groups in the past. And this is basically a transparency issue. It's guaranteeing that you can see what other people have bought this same piece of equipment for. It's just holding them accountable so that they're not wheeling and dealing with who they think may be gullible. But since we have this number, it'd be interesting for you to just RFP each company and see what they come back with for a bid to us personally. Maybe they like you, maybe they'll give you a better deal.
No, I can definitely do that. While we are discussing equipment, do we want to potentially include a backhoe at the same time with those 2 motor graders so we could potentially sweeten the deal a little bit more?
Well, I think we have to replace the backhoe now.
Yes. We,
Is this the one on the capital improvement list?
No, that's the landfill backhoe. I think we have to have a second backhoe. I don't think we can get by with one. We can, but we're
Get
gonna get
by,
a lot
but we're
less
gonna-
work done,
that's
so.
correct.
And, with the culvert situations the way they are, I think we need both of them going, so. I would say we price a backhoe. We don't have to if it's, the price is exorbitant, we can.
okay.
But I don't think we can, I think we're gonna suffer trying to get by with one.
Yeah, we could have one busy right now, putting in about 3 or 4 other pipes where they're
Yep.
working.
Just, it spreads it too thin to cover the whole county with one backhoe.
And then, just to let you know that we had, 2 motor graders qualify for cash back through Caterpillar. One motor grader we received $622, and the other motor grader we received $107,000 of store credit at Foley's for fuel consumption, where we ended up using more fuel than what they said they guaranteed the machine has. So they basically paid for our fuel. And last thing that I have is discuss what bridges we're going to be allowed to do this year. Previously, I had recommended doing 105 and possibly 98 at the same time, and saving those mobilization costs to have a company come in and drive pile. As far as hard numbers, I don't have anything exact put together until we know that we're actually going to do it.
Are you saying that's why you listed them as number 1 and 2?
I believe the reason why they hit number 1 and number 2 is their sufficiency ratings. Combination of sufficiency and ADT. And the fact that neither one of those will qualify for an OS bridge program either.
Will, which
I
ones
guess-
on this list will? I think would be the,
An OS bridge program?
out of
Right
these
now,
top 8.
Out of these top 8, it looks like 107 and 65 will be the state will approve those before any other, due to the fact that they are fracture critical. You know, they're replacing fracture criticals before they're repairing any other structures.
You get a better chance of getting selected if it's actually fracture critical.
And we've been very fortunate that every other year we have qualified for a bridge.
I think the top 3 are also ones that require annual inspections. So you're paying every year to inspect those, just because they're in such bad shape.
Which will cease if we replace them.
Right.
What is the cost of the annual inspection? $2,000?
I think,
I don't.
Fracture
Per-
criticals might be that high. These I don't think will be 2,000.
yeah, no, I can't remember what the price was to do that. $120 a piece.
So I was
think.
thinking
Oh.
Yeah, $120 a piece.
Okay,
on
I
a
was-
bridge this style.
I was off.
Yeah.
So then that's not necessarily a determining factor, except it's good to know that if it's deemed fracture critical. The top 3
But
you
the
said
fact that
have.
the fact that it hits annual inspection shows the quality of the bridge. Though.
I understand. But you said they don't qualify, so what, so.
For an off system.
Right, so we're looking at 2 different options. We're looking at a bridge, which you will be compiling the paperwork to try to get the match funding through the federal fund exchange. And that would be, you're saying between 65 and 107. Because 98 and 105
Yes.
don't qualify for that. So we have two separate projects we're looking at. One where we get the federal fund exchange like we're doing for OS 87
Correct.
this year.
Correct.
The other one we're looking at internally funding
Correct.
because of its need, location, da-da-da.
Yes.
And so can you put the numbers together for those 2? Because the quote that you gave us for the person that was going to, you maybe sub out for piling, you could, because they're relatively close together, the locations,
Yes.
so that's the
Yeah.
cost savings potential right there.
$6,000 to $7,000, I think, in just mobilization. If we provide
And
2
what are-
jobs, you may bid the second one much cheaper or
What is our
much
current
less.
status with our crew, as far as, do we have a full bridge crew, or,
Well, we've been running 2 and borrowing another man helping in, like on that pipe up there right now. Mainly just 2 right now, full-time.
You only have 2 out of 4 positions.
But,
Is that, am I, 3 positions for bridge crew?
Three-person crew.
yeah.
So are you hired, is there a list? I haven't looked if there's a listing. Do you have a listing for a bridge crew position right now?
No. Operator right now.
But we have
Maybe either.
but we have budgeted for 3 positions on bridge crew, but we only have 2. But we're not advertising for that 3rd position currently.
Operator position, and that would fill in.
Who does the advertising, Bob or Michael?
Deborah.
Whoever does.
Well, who tells her what she's advertising for out of your department? Who does?
I do. We do.
You do? So are we going to advertise for that 3rd bridge crew position, or?
There's a third person that has the bridge crew position but is filling in someplace else at the moment.
Doing what?
Anywhere from truck driving to, well, no, I guess not truck driving, been doing signs, running the roller some and stuff like that, so.
So why would we be taking that person who's getting the bridge crew pay, which is more, and replacing him with someone else on the bridge crew?
They're not building a bridge right now for them.
Well, all the bridge crew's been doing for the last 3 years is culverts. We haven't done a bridge in more than 3 years, so it's my assumption that the bridge crew is the culvert crew. I mean, we haven't done a bridge since when?
Pretty much
2013,
same, yeah.
14 maybe? I don't remember.
They repaired bridges, they just haven't built one.
He's, I don't think he's getting a bridge rate right now, is he? 'Cause,
Wouldn't the pay rate adjustment come through the commission?
yeah, it should have been.
I haven't seen anything like
But
that.
I
What is
don't
the
think-
reason for this?
Well, some of his evaluation stuff we're holding back on.
So have you started the evaluation process?
Yeah, trying to kind of keep working with it.
Would you say, are you 50% done, or
Oh, probably not quite.
are you doing all the employee evaluations?
Yeah, it's in my description, I'm supposed to do them all,
Okay.
so.
Do you have a time frame as far as when you'd like to see yourself be able to accomplish that goal for
6
you?
to 8 months or so, something like that, like I say. It
Well,
should
8
be-
months would put us into next year, so that'd be a problem.
Yeah. Some of the new ones I'd like to get here sooner and then try to get one towards the end of the year again on everybody. That kind of,
But what I'm hearing is that we have a bridge crew position, and someone in that position has failed to live up to the standards of their evaluations, so they're doing other jobs within the department.
the jobs until they can meet there.
And so what position have you taken someone away from to fill in that spot?
Well, right now, our dozer operator, he pretty well caught up, so he was helping, so I'm just kind of.
On the bridge crew?
Whoever was kind of available at the time. It was free, equipment broke down or something like that, or caught up with their job, whatever.
The dozer operator is working on the bridge crew, or he's doing equipment
He's helping
maintenance.
them, he's running equipment there on
for the bridge crew?
with the bridge crew.
When we just went over the job descriptions and the job requirements for all the positions, we do have a requirement for CDLs for across the board, correct? And is that fulfilled right now?
No, that was one of the problems we're having right now.
That's one of the problems with some of the evaluations. How many situations do we have like that?
Well, one really problem there, and the other is said he's supposed to get his this week. So he should be, if he gets it, be okay.
We pay for that, don't we?
If they choose to go through the program,
If
we
they
will.
go through the course.
We got 3 employees that do not have their CDL. One of them chose to go through the VOTEC to obtain their CDL, and today they are getting driving instruction. They'll test Friday and should have their CDL by end of the week or first of the week, whenever they get down to get it taken care of. The other 2 individuals chose to obtain them on their own.
Well, you wanna get some figures on those?
Yeah, we'll throw together some pricing, see what it's gonna cost, some potential cost savings to do the 2 at the same time.
Dawn, has there been a pay rate adjustment through your office for any employees who aren't fulfilling the duties of what they're being paid to do under their pay scale in that department, or?
I don't believe there's been any 6-month raises given.
Haven't been increased in there.
No, I'm not talking about raises, I'm saying if you,
The bridge crew makes $1 an hour more than everybody else, so if the guy isn't on the bridge crew, then you probably should be asking to reduce the wage. Is that what you're asking?
that is what I'm addressing, yeah. And if we need that position filled, then we need to be advertising for it so that we can be as efficient as possible. I mean, if you're pulling people out of other positions when we're actively replacing culverts and such, which is good. I mean, I see that you guys are making progress down there. And I've had several people say that in that general vicinity on 6th where you're replacing the culvert and the blacktop, there's been some, I don't know if they're actually pulling ditches or just cleaning up the edge of the road probably and doing some grading there that they're glad to see, so.
Yeah, we tried to shape it up, get it better shape for the traffic it was gonna get.
Do you ever have a motor grader put down a level line and check their drop for the 5-inch crown?
No, they just run off the meters they got in there, what their crown should be.
It has a
Supposed to.
sensor on it, the blade has a sensor on it
They have a
Yes.
grade.
that tells you the,
Tells what grade they're on.
Yeah,
Slope meter.
it just shows them what they're running.
it's called a slope meter.
Uh-huh.
And so,
Everybody
when,
should achieve.
I'm sorry?
The operators should be achieving their slope based off of what their machine tells them.
So does the machine keep record of that so you can see what the slope is that they're running at?
Most of them are analog.
Yeah,
It's just
Oh, just
they're,
at real
they're
time?
like a curved bubble, like a carpenter's level.
Mhm.
It'll have a curve in it. It'll
Mhm.
have a bubble that shows when the machine shows the percent of slope.
So do you give them a recommended number to follow?
Yeah, recommended.
What is it?
About 4% is what most is recommended. It depends on the type of road and stuff too, but that's an average.
You got something, Norman?
Yeah, is the county exempt from this electronic logbook requirement?
Yes,
Are we?
we're local, so
That's a-
we don't exceed like 100 miles, I think it is.
Yeah, we're considered intrastate instead of interstate.
Yeah.
That's a mess.
When do you have to begin your paperwork for the federal fund exchange program?
We are completed with our federal fund exchange. I believe we've already got our money, correct? Do we need to do a resolution on that?
Yes, and I didn't get it done, so
Okay.
I'll do it next week.
52,000, I believe is what it was, so. It's completed for this year.
Okay.
Okay, got anything else?
We want to talk about it?
Yeah, well, I think we just as well
Okay.
hit on it anyways.
The Highland Lake Dam, DWR has asked that they get something in writing showing the ownership of the dam before the county doesn't have to
They want
inspect
us
it.
to admit to owning it?
Or
Well-
prove that we don't.
Yeah, so,
So
we
you have to
had,
close the road. Is that what we're still considering?
Yeah, so that is an option. So we had a title company, Land, Home, and Title, actually look at it, supply some documents. I'm planning on scanning these and sending it to DWR this week and seeing what they say. It does show ownership of that section that the dam is in, and it didn't have the county listed as the owner. So I'm thinking it should be good. If they come back with something else, then I think the next option would be looking into closing the road. So I was planning on sending these and seeing what they say, and then next time I'm down, I can let you know.
Yeah, the O&E report doesn't show, and we don't have any documentation that we can find in our records that show when the road moved off of the section line to cross the dam as far as the county having ownership or a right-of-way. It was, the only documentation we can find is in an old newspaper or DWR magazine that stated that the landowners owned it and the county would maintain for the public across their property a road. So right-of-way was never achieved to go over that. I believe that was what, 1956?
Yeah, 56 is what.
And any changes that we may have to do to the dam will take a complete, full-blown set of plans and permits.
Yep.
And just like Tanner and I was discussing this morning, something I fear is if there's anything, if we go to change that outlet to, and we do a full set of plans and the slope on the dam is not to today's specifications, they're gonna say, hey, you need to go ahead and put this to a 3-to-1 instead of a 1 to 1.5.
Yeah.
And here we are, you know, we're investing so much money into something.
Serves us no
We're not going
purpose.
to go that far.
None whatsoever.
Yeah. Well, let us know what they say, or you let us know what
Yeah,
they
A
say.
road
Hopefully it's
closed
before we
sign's
see you again.
considerably cheaper.
Correct. So that's all I have.
I think you pretty much cover everything else I had. Fracture critical bridges. There's some fracture critical bridge inspections that are coming, so FYI. They'll be due here in a few months. So,
Biennial will be this fall.
right.
When you come back next time, Michael, would you bring your tablets with you so we can kind of see where we're at and what the guys are recording?
Sure.
And any printouts that we can obtain?
Thank you.
Brian, did you have something while these guys were here, or did you need something today?
No, I talked to Les about an issue.
Yeah, if you guys are finished, I had a designated section, and Kristen, I'm sorry, we're running behind. I told you you could have a portion of my time too, but I also told Mr. Meitler that he could speak during my segment because he had asked me about an issue he had, and I said if he wanted to address the board, that
Is
would
it a
probably...
road issue, or?
No, it's,
Okay.
and I think it's just, I already know the answer because we don't have any zoning and stuff, but I have a cell phone tower going up right outside my back door of my house. And I wasn't too happy about it, that, you know, what it does to the value of property, somebody, if I ever sell in the future. And to the other landowners, I have property that, I mean, it's right on the fence line, and the other properties out there, they're for sale. And I would probably see that they'll never sell now with a cell phone tower going right out the back door of where somebody's gonna try to build a house. And,
Or they already started building it?
they dug the hole, they started Friday, and they worked all weekend digging, Saturday and Sunday digging, and so I presume that's what it is. I went up there, there's a sign on the fence, and it was some communication company, and then I looked up on the internet, it says serving the you know, basically the cellular tower communication world or whatever. But
Like
I
it's a
just wish-
generically owned tower that maybe other companies are.
Yeah, that's what I
Purchasing
presume they're doing. They're probably
utilization.
gonna purchase rights to put their antenna on that tower is what I presume they're gonna do. But I don't know. I just wish we could have something that at least they have to come and at least make property owners aware. Like, I talked to the county appraiser and it was just like, this is a fixed structure going on concrete and they get taxed 0 for that. The property owner, for the amount of space they're taking up, gets charged 25% of the tax rate for that chunk of ground. The tower gets taxed 0. And I asked her if that was a state statute, and I never really got the answer out of her. So I don't know whether it's a state statute or if it's something that our appraisers just take upon themselves to judge what is and isn't.
Assuming it's
Taxable.
considered personal property, it's exempt.
It's considered
But-
personal.
That's what my assumption.
Is that because they're renting from the landowner? Because in utility company terms, yeah, thank you. In utility company terms, the utility company pays per item that they have erected
I don't
in
know,
the county.
There's probably some stuff with the state. I was in there this morning trying to look up state statutes, and I mean, there's too much to read and to understand all that too without talking to a lawyer about it, but I just wish for future, I mean, everybody knows what the taxes are out in that area, and then you have those thrown up in your backyard. I've got one to the north of me now, and then the one to the south, and now one right behind me, and it's like, and
Well, I think what you're saying is the reason why people purchase land and build homes there is because of the view, because of the situation, and then you're taxed accordingly because the valuation out there for your property is significantly higher, and now it's being decreased by a third-party activity.
which I was told that will not be decreased until someone can prove
That it's,
within our county that it's not.
which means it has to
detrimental
sell,
their
so unless
view.
you're willing to sell and show that you haven't made your dollars worth.
And I don't know how, I mean, on the farming, and somebody else can probably say, I don't know, is a grain bin taxable item? Or is it a,
Not on a
Not blues, no.
see, I didn't know, I mean, you guys farmers have other exemptions besides a regular businessman gets, but
Yeah,
it's like,
considerably.
it's,
But why
We're
is,
outside for you.
but then why would the wind towers be paying a payment in lieu of tax when it's an erected structure that they're paying the landowner? Why is that any different for a cell phone company? Is that an actual state statute? Do we know? Can we ask the appraiser to come and address that with us? I think we
I'm
should at
sure we
least
can,
follow up
yeah.
on it.
I'm sure we can.
The only thing, Brian, I'm aware of is that they have to, it seems to me like there was something, they had to be so far away from property lines.
yeah.
And it
200.
was not significant.
I think it's 200 feet, wasn't it?
I don't remember, but it seems like when the wind farms there was some discussion about putting one next to my neighbor's house, or land, and there was some offset they had. But don't quote me on that, it just seems like that was something, and I assume that would be a cell tower too, but I don't know.
If you guys could find out, and, because they're not 200 foot from the fence line, I mean,
Well,
there's enough to space to drive a couple track hose widths between the fence line and where the towers go.
And I know there's
Is
one
that your
down
property
by
on the other side of the fence?
Ada that's right on or close to the road. There was a pretty big discussion about that, but
It may depend on the height of the tower, too.
yeah, so.
Okay. That was all I had. I
Yeah.
just was, like I
We
said,
could-
I don't know what we could do to encourage to get something, at least people know that they're going in, and you don't come home one day and there's a big pile of dirt being, 250 yards out your back door that's accumulating for a chunk of concrete to go in. And,
Or how that affects your appraisal value?
well, that's to be seen. I mean, I guess.
Yeah, they're having a big fight in Wichita right now by
And that's the one I was on, and
Yeah.
I mean, it's lowering the values, they
yeah,
estimate
yeah,
by
yeah,
20%.
yeah.
But that is probably only substantiated through sales records when it comes to the appraiser's office, I would assume.
I would say it probably is.
We're never gonna establish that in Lincoln County, because we don't have any people living by these things besides the few houses that are out there on this side of the road that I'm on, so.
So are you volunteering to head zone the county? Do you want to head that committee to?
That's what it takes, you know, I just, you know, I mean, just look into the future of where things are going in this
Yeah.
world's going,
Yeah.
I mean,
You know, that's a,
we've got by for how many ever years, but it might be time that we're just gonna have to bite the bullet, and there's gonna be consequences to keep this county clean, environmentally stable, and not just let people come in here and overrun us for, you know, an environment can be a lot of things. I mean, it can be what we look at, it can be our ground and our air and water and everything. I mean,
you know, it's interesting, Ottawa County was successful at doing theirs. Mitchell County, not so successful. I think they've started, and I think it's basically a perimeter around Beloit is the way I understand it.
3 miles, I believe.
You
3 mile
know,
radius.
but they were unsuccessful at doing the county. It became quite an issue. It's interesting that Ottawa County was able to do it so easily.
in Russell County has,
Yeah, I'm sure they
has
probably.
theirs too, but like I said, we just don't wanna become the last one in our state to do this, and then we're becoming the pit dump for what everybody
Yeah.
else don't want, and we're just the easy people to get by with because we couldn't stand up for ourselves in the beginning.
You know, when the wind towers came in, they could not believe that we didn't have to have permits and all this stuff, you know, and we're an open county, you know, so you basically could do what you wanted to, you know, and, you know, that probably opened a few eyes then, that maybe we ought to consider that. I have very mixed feelings on it. I think it can become extremely complicated and red taped, that it's not something that would sell easy here, but in your case, and in the case of wind towers probably, we probably ought to have some regulations where they could go, you know.
Yeah, we'll just,
Doesn't Ellsworth have a size limit, small
I don't.
block?
I don't.
I was told they do, you can't.
Well, we do for sanitation purposes. For sanitation purposes, houses have to have 3 acres in the country.
But now what about a grandfather clause? What if somebody's got a plot less than 5 acres?
That's
Well,
grandfathered.
there's
They're
some of them
grandfathered.
grandfathered in, yeah.
Yeah.
which that's a joke too, because like at the lake, I mean,
Yeah.
there's people have lots on one
Yeah.
side or their house over here, and they got their 3 acres. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
joke.
Yeah, it is.
It's the way the lots get laid out, and they just the developer plots things together, get 3 acres, and put your septic in. You know, you only got 1.5 acres over here, but you're fine. Like I said, I don't want to head that up, but I mean, there's other people that have the know-how to make that happen, but
I wouldn't want one outside my door either.
I suppose they like that hill, huh?
I guess.
Yeah.
Well,
Shorter
I guess
tower.
if I could've got the prairie chickens on the endangered species list, I could probably stop them because
There you go.
there's enough of those out there.
Okay. That may be your end.
Yeah. Well,
Contact wildlife.
It's too late now. Once it's up, so.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know. I thought you guys might know too. Of you know, some state law that says, hey, these guys should have applied for a permit, because when they start digging on Friday, and it's like they're working all weekend trying to get this concrete poured before anybody recognizes what's going on here. I thought, well, maybe there is something with the county that they can say, hey, wait a minute, guys, you didn't.
I guess.
As far as I know, there is not.
Yeah, as far as I guess Elaine Bowers is extremely good at knowing people in Topeka to talk to get you your answer.
Okay. I'm gonna just
Give her a call.
and talk to her.
She's always very responsive.
Well, that's all I had. So,
Thank you, brother.
well, thank you guys.
All right, thank you, brother.
Yep.
Make a bunch of copies, but about 3 or 4 commissions ago, you all voted on the kitchen area where there's the hallway, the storage room, and the bathroom, where that corian tile was put in the main area of the kitchen and the dishwashing area. But then the tile that was put in the resident rooms, which are they look like wooden planks, it's the LVT material, excuse me, is getting put in that side of the kitchen where there's the hallway, the storage room, and the bathroom. I have several concerns about that. One, the LVT tile is not made for a commercial kitchen. It even states it here. These 3 pages talk about, I didn't make copies for each one of you, but it talks about how it's not created for a commercial kitchen. Also, that LVT flooring, you can only use neutral cleaner on it. So when you're talking grease particles in a kitchen, I don't know if you've tried to use a neutral cleaner on grease before, but it don't work very good. You may use a quat cleaner or orange cleaner or something like that.
If you're trying to get grease off and not use chemicals, you just sprinkle baking soda all over it and pour vinegar on it.
Okay, so my point is that this is a commercial kitchen, and I have flooring that we clean and treat one way, and I have another flooring that we are going to have to clean and treat a different way. And I can tell you, we're not going to put baking soda on the floor and scrub it. We're not. Or my staff
But you
won't.
keep saying kitchen, but you already clarified that it's the hallway and storage and bathroom.
It's all part of the kitchen. There's no doorway separating the two.
But what this is saying is basically when you have like grease spills and you're doing cooking with hot items and things that might drop in your kitchen space, it's not going to hold up to that. You're talking about walking spaces, and or the hallway would be a walking space in the storage room. You wouldn't even really have traffic on. It would just be holding.
There's a ton of traffic in this area. All of our deliveries come through that door, on carts and on dollies. And right now, the transition between the flooring that's being put down there and that Korean tile is about this much.
But you can put a transition strip there.
You can put a transition strip there. But my point is, that flooring is not made for commercial kitchen. You're going to be putting freezers on top of that. You're going to do rolling carts over that in a very high traffic area. I mean, that area is beat up. And, resident room versus...
What's underneath? Just concrete?
Yeah.
So then why don't we just paint the concrete? You could do, basically what we're talking about is something that you're not agreeing with what the designers decided to do because of the use of the space, which they're not as familiar with as you are. But if you're talking about it being an overly abused area and there's already concrete, they make industrial, you can chip those, there's little like flecks of paint that you spread, and then it kind of makes,
some of that downstairs.
yeah, it makes like a little bit of an abrasive surface so that it's not slippery. You can use industrial paint and have any color that you wanted to match. But if that's the worry that it's going to be beat up, I would say you're talking about ceramic tile.
No, it's the same tile that's throughout the rest of the kitchen. It's that Korean tile. The problem is that big lip, and I don't know what a transition would look like. How big you want it, or how far it would come out to make it a transition. But it's a pretty big. We have the same issue from the kitchen out to the dining room, and they haven't done anything with that transition yet. I don't know what their plan is there. I don't think they've quite figured that out yet.
Well, it says here bathrooms, recommended application, bathrooms are fine. It does say excluding commercial kitchens, but
The cooking area is right next to this area. There's no cutoff. There's no anything to keep it from the environment of a commercial kitchen.
But you're not preparing food in that area. You're not cooking in that area.
No,
correct?
you've got your freezers in the storage room area, and you've got your storage shelves in that area, and all of your carts. There's a freezer out in that hallway as well, because we don't have enough freezer space. And then all the deliveries that are coming through that traffic area.
I would say if it's that industrially used, you would want just the exposed concrete and do something to surface that. They make sealants and things like that.
Is there anything that says the floor has to have a covering on it? I don't know that. For purposes of infection control and all that kind of good stuff. And a sealant is good enough. You put a sealant on it, does that make it too slick? There's lots of things I don't know about that piece, but
Well, it was our understanding from the meeting where we voted on this that the particular material that the engineer chose has already been purchased and it's sitting there on site. And that there would be a cost increase to change it.
Yeah, it's about $6,300 to lay the Korean tile to make it consistent throughout the whole entire kitchen area.
He also told us that he wasn't sure if this was a code issue. I don't know if anyone's checked up on that, but he started out by saying it was a 25 square foot space, and then it ended up to be 420 square feet, and that, you know, that kind of conversation just led to, I'm not sure of the necessity there. And I would say if it's as industrially used as you're claiming, with carts and heavy equipment, things being dropped, and, I mean, you're better off to go with just the concrete. And then do we get to return the portion of the flooring that's been purchased for that area, maybe?
It's not that big of an area.
420 square feet is pretty
By the time
huge.
you get the floor clean enough to put, paint as you call it, epoxy or whatever, then I don't think you're gonna have any cost savings.
From
You can just use
doing the
From
Korean
tile.
versus that?
No, from the tile to there. Cause that surface has to be extremely clean to put epoxy down on it. In fact, a floor's been in use that long, I don't know if they can get it clean enough.
Well, it's been stripped down to the concrete, and they've started laying the wood planks. They probably have I don't know, half of them down.
Well, I mean, if it lasts 5 years, it lasts 5 years. If it lasts 10, I don't know what the life warranty, is there some sort of warranty on that? I mean, it says bathrooms are fine, so there should be a warranty on it. And if a portion of it is not under warranty, the section in the hallway that's considered commercial kitchen, I mean, maybe that would need replaced in the future. Did we figure out the threshold problem with the hallway doors? Has that been, because it sounds like we're having threshold problems
You mean in
throughout.
the resident rooms?
To the hallway. No, the hallway, wasn't it between the doors that close? and-
No, that was the 2 expansion joints in the 100 hall.
But it's anything that goes over top of a cover where there's an actual
Yeah,
opening is
the
a
doors don't
threshold.
have those. None of the resident rooms have those. It's
The
just,
hallway.
the flooring just matches up and there's no transition there. It's just the same level
So
throughout.
what are they gonna
they're-
do there?
Nothing.
You
Nothing
took them
needs to
off,
be-
they're just gonna stay?
There were no transitions in the doorway ever.
No, the one
Before-
where the one where you had several people tripping with their walkers.
Okay, those are out in the middle of the hallway. So you have the 100 hall and they stretch all the way across the 100 hall.
Where the doors close?
No. One is where the West Nurses Station sits. It's just to the east. There's, a resident room, and then it's kind of right there, right in the start of the east
But
half of that
you
long
had said
hallway.
you guys removed them just so there weren't
We
any
did.
issues right, so what is the plan with that?
They don't know yet. They're looking at options, I think 3 options of potentially what to do there. I don't think we have any quotes on that.
So maybe that would also be a discussion for this transition.
Honest, I don't know what the reason for those transitions or why they're needed or necessary. I don't know all the,
I think it's
pieces
an
of that.
expansion joint, isn't it?
So you just wanna
it's
cover
2
it.
expansion points that caused cracking in the tile, but none of that cracking wasn't cited in the deficiencies in 2015. And honestly, I would save money there and put Korean tile throughout the whole kitchen so that I could have staff clean with the same cleaners and everything throughout the whole kitchen area. And actually get the floor clean, not with a neutral cleaner. I know it's not in the kitchen area, but you're still in the kitchen area. It's not closed off from the kitchen, and I have a big concern of the amount of traffic you're going in and out of that storage room constantly. I have concern about the transition going from the Korean tile out to the dining room, but I'm absolute plan for that yet, and I haven't seen anything. So I'm hoping we get that consistent because we're gonna be taking carts over that too. But the one inside the kitchen concerns me because of how many times staff are going in and out of there and the cleaning of that flooring. It's not something that I'm wanting to make a decision on today. I just want to do some informing. If you guys want to come up to the building and look at this area so you can see what my concern is, maybe talk to the staff.
I guess my primary concern is we've gone into this whole project with an unknown outcome. We don't know the time frame. We're not sure of where this project is going for the future of the building, etc. And in my personal opinion, and I'm not speaking for them, but the commission has gone out of their way and far exceeded the necessary things that would be done by a landlord to maintain a property where a business owner is responsible for operating a business. And, you know, there's been some debate here as far as what do we cover. You know, if a business operator is renting a property, what is a necessary what is inclusive in the rent? In other words, you know, I've rented multiple buildings. Never once have I paid for someone's security system that they personally wanted or updated. You know, we purchased the fire doors. We're maintaining the elevator. All the things that are necessary costs, overhead expenses for a particular business. And I guess when you get down to choosing a particular flooring because you're concerned about the cleaning, when we've been charged here at the commission for cleaning expenses for the business, you know, that's a concern of mine. I guess we just get down to such nitty-gritty that we're spending public money to help furnish a business. At what point do you say, you know what, some of this cost can be incurred by the business? If the business is truly concerned about that, maybe they should chip in their portion of the funding.
I guess that we made our decision on the floor tile, and I don't see that getting changed probably right now. I think number one complaint is this morning that we're not moving fast enough to get the kitchen back up in order, and if we change directions now, it's gonna take even longer to get the kitchen back up and going, so I think we're where we are for now. And you know, there's so much up in the air down there as far as 3 years from now, is it even gonna be a nursing home? So. I assume that the intent is still to look at the other greenhouse option somewhere in the planning, so. You know, it may seem small, but it's $7,000, and we just spent another $10,000 this morning on wiring. Mm-hmm. And yeah, we're running a little under the estimate, but we're not done yet either. Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking at it from a perspective of, you know, you have an employee who slips on a floor that you can't get clean because you can't use the right cleaner, and you have a $20,000 work comp claim. So I guess there's
I don't think
1,000
it'll be any
ways to look
slicker
at
than
it.
the Corian.
Yeah, but the Corian, you can get the grease off because you're using that wash and walk product that just eats out those enzymes off the floor. There's no question about the use of that product on that Corian tile. It just makes, I don't know, I've just been in, I'm thoroughly excited about the fact that we have that Corian tile in the kitchen because it's so easy to clean compared to the flooring that we've had in there. And now we're faced with kind of the same issue we had before, of a floor that you can't get clean because it wasn't made for commercial use. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes?
Terry, question. In the future, it's been asked about open session on the agenda. Ms. Robinson requested an open session earlier, and you allowed her to come here in an open session situation. So are we going to see open session agenda in the future?
She, I believe,
I
This Lou
donated
offered her
my
at the to
time
come in
on
and
the
talk.
agenda.